Good afternoon. Today we will be discussing the Romans Warrior Foundation and the work that Adina Romanar, Danny Zhu, Jillian F., and I have done on their behalf. So, who is the Romans Warrior Foundation? This foundation is a 501c3 tax-exempt charitable organization whose purpose is to provide cost-free therapeutic weekend retreats for our veterans, Gold Star families, and first responders. This directly aligns with the organization mission, which is we provide free on-site therapeutic resources for our veterans, bridging the gap between military experiences and civilian life in a 3 to 4 day weekend package. Long-term programs shall provide for career transition, enhancement, and progression seminars. Additionally, organizational partnerships strengthen the resolve and capabilities in providing resources for our veterans throughout the country. So before we get into too much of what our group did for the Romans Warrior Foundation, I wanted to talk a little bit about the organization history. So Brian Romans, the founder of Romans Warrior Foundation, has continuously provided public service since the age of 17. He actually turned 18 in the United States Marine Corps recruit training, and he continued to serve our great country throughout 3 combat deployments to both Afghanistan and Iraq. And it was during these deployments that Staff Sergeant Romans learned the true value of freedom. Following his last combat deployment, he relocated to southern Indiana in March of 2015, where he began to work with the CACI Inc. In August. Roman's family was able to join him in his newly established home, and he was quite happy, until October of that year, when his life would be forever changed. At roughly 0:45, Brian collided with a 10.250-pound Indiana buck while riding his 2014 Harley-Davidson Street Glide. He was thrown from the back of the bike and hurtled 60 feet down the roadway with the motorcycle, skidding another 70 feet past him. He was airlifted to the Louisville University Hospital Trauma Unit, where after 45 minutes, the lead trauma nurse and her staff entered Roman's room and told him that he was going to be discharged in 15 minutes. That day changed Brian's life. He had been pulled towards this great cause with a guiding light, allowing various portions of it to fall into place. Roman has always helped others, and now he's being guided and called to continue this path for our veterans. And with this foundation, he has attained the ability to reach out and impact their lives. The services that Romans Warrior Foundation provides go much beyond just weekend retreats. They're quite involved with this community, offering services or activities like hiking, fishing, kayaking, and archery, all in beautiful southern Indiana, as well as more specific programs such as their Memorial Cabin program, which is dedicated to honoring fallen heroes, whether that be a veteran, a first responder, or another family member that qualifies for the program, where Romans Warriors Foundation will provide all of the funds and resources to build this cabin and make it happen. And the family actually gets to design the interior of the cabin, honoring their family members through tastes and memory. Another unique program is the Global War on Terror Wall of Remembrance. This is actually a traveling memorial and is a true testament to honoring those lives that have been lost through the past 20 years for our great nation. So this is a truly remarkable monument and that Romans Warrior Foundation has the responsibility of being able to travel and display to pay tribute to this generation. One of the other programs that actually stood out quite a bit to us was the FSE Killshot. This is actually an axe throwing venue. This program both maintains the organization mission and provides a source of revenue. So people are able to go to Killshot and have, it's sort of a cathartic experience with this axe throwing, and it actually raises money for the organization. Not to mention, it is an incredibly unique program. You will not find this at many organizations. And this is just an example of one of the ways that Romans Warrior Foundation is always improving and looking for new ways to serve the veteran community. With all of that being said, I will now pass this off to Jillian Neff, who will talk more about what we did for the Romans Warrior.
So, as a team, our task was to create a manual for volunteers and potential employees of Romans Warrior Foundation, review programs available and determine possible liabilities for one another, and ensure that Romans Warrior Foundation is doing the most to help volunteers and future employees understand the importance and commitment it takes to be involved with this organization. In the beginning of our semester in January, our group had the honor to meet with Brian Romans. At the time, Brian was beginning to enter a new stage with his foundation, which was going completely volunteer-based to hiring employees for the first time. And we were tasked with creating an employee handbook. This handbook would help Brian prepare for the hiring process. It would truly just be a start of a new era for the foundation. We had to make sure that Brian and his foundation would be protected as much as possible while also giving the best information to its employees. For instance, how certain policies would be at the business, and really truly informing of code of conduct such as equal opportunity and sexual harassment policies. And as time went on and as COVID-19 entered the picture, we had to make sure Brian was still ready for employees. And while he's not just ready yet due to the pandemic, he gave us new information and new guidelines that he wanted us to help accommodate with to create sort of a hybrid handbook, which was incorporating both volunteer policies and actual employee policies for when he's ready to begin that process. To meet the needs of the organization and to make sure Romans Warrior Foundation was prepared, we did our best at combining both employee and volunteer processes to accommodate COVID-19 imposed limitations. What we created was a handbook that outlined the history, mission, and vision of the organization, provides description of the numerous programs offered, includes how program is beneficial to the people that they serve, and includes future programs not yet implemented at the organization. It also describes how the organization will grow in the future and emphasizes the need for donations and volunteers, details in employee classifications and the employee code of conduct, provides resources for more information on the organization at the end of the handbook. So what is included in what we made? We as a group made an employee handbook that includes many volunteer programs and information. Our handbook order is as follows: our story, which is what they do; mission, who are we; helping is healing; programs, success stories; future growth, how you can help; volunteers, employee classifications, code of conduct, acknowledgement page, history, and contact page. Now we wanted this handbook to be an opening experience for those who aren't too familiar with the organization, and we did this for one reason, which is because Brian requested from us recently that he wanted us to create a hybrid handbook. Since the limitations of COVID-19 presented themselves, he isn't able to hire employees yet, which drastically changes a lot of the policy details in the handbook for a typical employee handbook. So in order to combat that, we wanted to make this something that really informs people, because not all volunteers are well informed. Volunteering is that first experience that you get with an organization. It's the first step in a strong relationship with an organization. So we feel that we made the right decision by including a lot of the history, a lot of the success, a lot of the growth, and a lot of the program information. Now, while displaying every page from the 33-page handbook won't help with time, we did want to showcase some pages we found to be most valuable and appealing throughout the process. Of course, the cover photo is a valuable one. We wanted to include a logo with pictures that we found to be meaningful from the organization's Facebook page. We also found that the history page was extremely valuable. Since Brian wanted this handbook to help both volunteers and employees, we found that a history page was important to have and would create a large impact. It's only 4 years old, so it's really important to those who are new to it, such as nearly everyone who interacts with it, are properly informed and involved. And we also found that there were a lot of meaningful quotes that we incorporated throughout the document to help it make it more meaningful for those who ever read it. Another section that we found to be extremely important was the program section. Now, this section alone shows us that the organization is far more than just weekend retreats. They serve a veteran community through numerous programs that provide therapeutic treatment. We wanted to make sure to showcase that for volunteers and employees once it gets to that time. Another page we found to be extremely influential was the Who Are We page and the Helping is Healing page. Now, the Helping is Healing we found to be extremely motivating and moving. It was a saying that we saw quite often when researching the website, and the photos, and just talking with Brian. It was something that came up a lot. And they have a quote in the Who We Are section that says, "We are the organization who cares. After all, helping is healing." And I think that speaks a lot to the organization, which is why we included that in this presentation. Complications. It's an unfortunate byproduct of most projects, especially ones that go through a worldwide pandemic. To not start with the so obvious one, we'll talk about communication. It was a hurdle, and before COVID 19, times were a little difficult to reach with Brian, and we don't put blame on him. He's an extremely busy person, and he runs this organization. So we completely understand, and he travels quite often. With lack of communication at times, we were unable to receive valuable information that we would help continue with the handbook. While many questions were cleared up in the end of things, some questions weren't, and it wasn't exactly his fault because he doesn't know the answers to these questions. For instance, benefits or employee vacation specifics or job descriptions on behalf of that. And this is because he was halted by COVID 19. With this immediate stop, he wasn't able to actually continue with creating employees and moving forward with this process. So, this is why we as a team did our best to start the process of creating a handbook that is manageable for Brian to update and improve and include whatever policies he feels is necessary once he is ready to hire employees. So it is why many policies aren't included, such as benefits, insurance, time off, things like that. It's important to have those in a normal, typical employee handbook, but in our case, our specific case, with the pandemic and with Brian's inability to continue with this process in this unknown, uncertain time, it was just not possible to do. Now, in a bigger note, COVID 19 was a huge restriction. We weren't really allowed to have a traditional volunteer experience with the organization. In January, we as a team planned to volunteer in April for a cookout fundraising event, and unfortunately, due to the circumstances, this was clearly canceled and our volunteer efforts were shot down. And I feel that as a team, this would have helped a lot more to get a better understanding of the organization, a more personal experience. We are still grateful that we got to meet with Brian in the beginning of January. So it was nice, but definitely something that we missed out of that process. And that concludes our presentation today. Thank you for your time. Comment below if you have any questions or comments you'd like to let us know about.